Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Commissioners meeting for March the 7th to order at this time. I apologize for being just a few minutes late. We operate on these iPads now, and sometimes they have operator error, I would say, in my case, most of the time. It's probably not the iPad, but anyway, I think we're ready to go now. At the beginning of our meetings, we always like to start our meetings with a prayer by a sitting commissioner. And during this time, you're welcome to use this time for your own prayer. You're welcome to use it for a moment of silence, or you're welcome to stand and join us in that prayer. This morning, we had Mr. Fred Belfield scheduled, and Mr. Belfield lost a sister-in-law over the weekend, and he is at her funeral in Newport News this morning, or on the way up there. It's his wife's sister, so he has an excused absence and will not be with us today. At this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Dan Combs to do the prayer, and then Commissioner Outlaw to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for the beauty of it and this beautiful weather we're seeing, Lord. We just know that there's troubles around the world, Lord, and we just pray that you would be with the people in Ukraine, Lord, and protect them, Lord, and help the whole situation, Lord. And you know what's going on, and you're in control, Lord, and we just pray for safety and understanding will come about. Lord, we just pray for this country also, Lord. We pray for North Carolina and Nash County, Lord. We pray for this meeting today, Lord. We just pray that you would be with us, and everything we do and say would be pleasing in your sight. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me okay?
That was much better.
Okay. I will try to remember to do that. Thank you for bringing that forward. All right, we're on item number 4 now. It would be the approval of the minutes. We had two scheduled meetings in February the 7th and February the 21st. I would entertain a motion for any corrections, changes, additions, or approval of the minutes as written.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion to approve both sets of minutes by Commissioner Outlaw, a second by Commissioner Combs. Is there any question from a commissioner on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Minutes stand approved, and thank you, Madam Clerk, for the great job you always do. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now on item number 5. It is public comment, which is a time in our agenda each first meeting of the month when you are welcome to come before the commissioners and speak on any item that is not otherwise on the agenda. If it is on the agenda like a public hearing, we'd like for you to wait until that time. We do ask that you sign up out front before the meeting, right up to the time we start. I did not have anyone to sign up this morning, but if there's someone here that wishes to speak on an item not on the agenda, we'd be glad to hear from you. The board is very pleased to hear from its citizens about anything they have on their mind. So is there someone here that wishes to speak that didn't realize they needed to sign up? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 6. Item number 6 is Nash County Senior Center receives national accreditation, and I'll call on Morgan Dowdy to make this presentation and some of her staff as well.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to have a short video that's going to play before we do our presentation. Thank you, Jonathan.
Could have played that right there.
just wanted to show that video with you all this morning, just to show that our staff was able to continue our services throughout the pandemic and while our building was closed. We never missed a beat, whether it was on Facebook Live or doing stuff in the parking lot, COVID vaccine clinics. We stayed really busy. And so we just wanted to make sure that we shared that with y'all this morning. So it is my honor and privilege to be here with you guys to share that we received national accreditation status at the Nash Senior Center. We have received this for the third time. The Nash Senior Center was first accredited in 2010, and we held it for 5 years. We were reaccredited in 2015, and then because of COVID, we were not able to do it in 2020, so it kind of pushed us back a little bit. So now we have received our accreditation in 2022, and we will hold it until 2027. We are only one of 8 senior centers in the state of North Carolina, and we will join the ranks of 120 senior centers nationwide who have received national accreditation status. There are over 10,000 senior centers nationwide, so that's a really, really great accomplishment, and we're very proud. Senior centers who achieve this status have done so because they have demonstrated outstanding leadership and commitment to quality programs and services to their older adults. National accreditation is not a state or a federal requirement. It was a choice that we consciously made in order to portray the Senior Center in a positive light in terms of being a viable, fundable, and qualified provider of services within Nash County. NCOA's National Institute of Senior Center offers the nation's only National Senior Center Accreditation Program. The accreditation provides official recognition that a senior center meets 9 standards of senior center operation. The accreditation is a 2-phase process. The self-assessment phase is based on 9 national senior center standards of senior center operation. It's a tongue twister. These standards include purpose, community collaboration, program planning, evaluation, financial management, governance, administration, record keeping, and facility. An agency must receive 75% minimum score in each one of the 9 standards in order to be accredited. The accreditation phase, which is the second phase, involves compiling supporting documentation related to the 9 standards. We did a virtual review of our documentation and had a virtual senior center tour by a certified peer reviewer. Then a review of our peer reviewer's findings was then put into a recommendation, and then it was approved by the National Institute of Senior Centers Accreditation Board. Most senior centers complete this process in 6 to 12 months, but like I said earlier, because of COVID and trying to change and adapt the process, it took us a little bit longer. So we began in August of 2020, and then we submitted our work in December of 2021. The accreditation board just met in late February, and we received the word a few days ago about our accreditation status. Being nationally accredited is quite an accomplishment. Our peer reviewers observed many strengths of our senior center. These included that our senior center has a dedicated and compassionate staff who listened to participants' needs and has adapted programs to meet those needs in a variety of ways during the pandemic. Many facility improvements have been made during the last 2 years to upgrade areas and to make the center more comfortable and appealing. The self-assessment process included several members who had participated in prior accreditation and even included founding members of our senior center. I'd like to introduce to you a few people this morning who helped us with the process, as well as those that are here to help us celebrate. Ronald. I served as the point of contact for this process, but Ashley Winstead, our Senior Services Director, is on this side, and then Allison Barrett, our Senior Center Supervisor of the Southern Nash Senior Center, and then, of course, Stacy Schatzer, our County Manager, assisted and played a vital role in helping us achieve this honor. We formed an accreditation committee that we created in order to review all 9 standards. We divided up our committee into 4 groups, and we had several senior center participants as well as community members who served with us. Ronald Jenkins, who's behind us, served on our committee, and then Commissioner Dan Cohn. And there's a list of other folks that were unfortunately not able to be here with us today. I'd also like to introduce Tamika Hill, who's a part of our staff, who's here to help us celebrate today. We are very excited and honored to achieve this national accreditation status, and we have been and will continue to be a senior center who is held as a model for others to follow. Does anybody want to say anything else? No, okay, thank you.
Morgan?
Yes, sir.
I'm bound to ask you one question before you leave.
Yes, sir.
Do you enjoy what you do?
I do, yes, sir.
Quite obvious.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy, is one of those 8 in the state Rocky Mount Senior Center?
It is.
If I'm not wrong?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So we have 2 in Nash County then?
That's correct.
Right,
2
wonderful.
of the 8 are in Nash County.
Yep,
Mr.
All right.
Chairman, can I just make one comment?
absolutely.
Before the senior center folks leave. It was my honor to be a part of the first accreditation when Ms. Schatzer was director of the senior center. And I worked with a good group over there, and a couple of them still stick in my mind a lot. One of them's Carl Holland, and another one was Miss Agnes Moore. So it was a great experience for me, and I'm appreciative of the opportunity I had to serve in that first group to get that first accreditation. And thank you for what you do for the seniors in Nash County. It's appreciated more than you know.
Amen. All right, we'll move on to great presentation. We'll move on to item number 7, which is one of 3 public hearings on rezoning this morning. It happened to all, I noticed, Commissioner Combs be in your district.
Yes, sir.
Won't you share the wealth with us a little bit throughout the county when you can, sir? Mr. Tyson, what we got this morning on rezoning request CZ 220102, Coolwater Place.
As the chairman said, this is the first of 3 rezoning public hearings this morning. The first 2 are residential in nature, and the last one will be commercial. This is Coolwater Phase 4 subdivision. I want to begin with the sketch plan to explain a change that happened to this request as it went through the review process. This was originally submitted as a request to rezone the property to RA20CZ conditional zone. As you can see, or as you could see if it was a little larger, the lots are proposed at between 20,000 and 30,000 square feet in size, which is consistent with an RA20 zoning district. It was in that form when the planning board first considered it on January 18th. The planning board tabled it at that meeting. On February 15th, the applicant asked to revise the request. Instead of being an RA20CZ, it was revised to an RA30CZ. However, there was very little change to the site plan because they utilized the cluster option. This area in the west was already proposed as an open space, and in order to make this a cluster subdivision, that open space became a mandatory common area. But there was very little change to the design, no change to the design of the road or the number of lots or to the design of the lots. The subject property is about 20.5 acres of land owned by Carl Friedrich Habrian. It's located on the west side of Whitley Road. So this is Whitley Road right here in Needham. It is currently in the R40 zoning district. You can see it's in a green color there. It is across the street from some RA20 that has been established over the last 2 years. Property is northeast of the town of Bailey in the Green Pond community. It currently includes 1 existing structure at 9062 Whitley Road that has either been removed or is planned for removal. The site is immediately south of 6 existing lots of Coolwater Phase 1 subdivision, which run along Needham Road up here. There are 2 existing lots of Coolwater Phase 3 subdivision that run down Whitley Road right here. And to the south, there are 6 lots of the Glover Oaks Section 1 subdivision. Those were developed between 2004 and 2013, all of which were developed at the currently applicable R40 zone and dimensional standards. More recently, as I mentioned, the property across the road over here in the yellow was rezoned in May and October of 2021 to RA20CZ for a 54-lot Whitley Crossing Phase 1 subdivision on this property. Then to the east, Whitley Crossing Phase 2, which will have 37 lots. The western boundary of the subject property right here is immediately adjacent to the White Oak Swamp, and of course there will be a 50-foot wide noose riparian buffer that is effective along that property line to prevent disturbance of the swamp area. The property owner has submitted this rezoning request, as I stated, first to RA20, but now to RA30 with a cluster design, specifically for this Cool Water Phase 4 subdivision. Approving the rezoning would have 3 substantial impacts. First, it would reduce the minimum lot size from 40,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet, increasing the potential residential density. And then, of course, the cluster development option would permit lots potentially as small as 20,000 square feet with that required common area on the back western portion of the property. There are 9 land uses that are permitted for development now that would no longer be permitted if the rezoning were approved, the most notable of which is double-wide manufactured homes. And of course, because this is a conditional rezoning, if approved, the property would have to be developed in accordance with the sketch plan that has been submitted by the property owner. This is a conditional rezoning, so there is the opportunity to attach conditions with the consent of the applicant. If we look at the sketch plan, this has been submitted by Stocks Engineering. It proposes 22 new residential lots. You'll note that none of these lots will be accessed directly from Whitley Road, but rather from the proposed new interior road. It also provides a stub road connection to the immediately adjacent property to the south for potential interconnectivity if that property were ever to be developed residentially in the future. As I've already stated, the plan uses the cluster development option, meaning that the normally required minimum lot size would be 30,000 square feet. But these lots under this design could include as little as 20,000 square feet each, provided that the land that's not included in those lots is made up for in the common area on the back western portion of the property. There are 3.31 acres of that common area designated on the property nearest to White Oak Swamp. That exceeds the minimum requirement of 3.08 based on this design. And the lot owners may access that common area via a 20-foot access easement that runs here between lots 27 and 28. Sketch plan includes a shared mailbox kiosk in the road right-of-way, and of course, the developer would be required to construct a new water line along the new road to connect all of these lots to the existing Nash County public water system, where there's an existing water line in the right-of-way of Whitley Road. We turn our attention to the land development plan. Of course, the board is very familiar with this area and the fact that it is in the suburban growth area. The plan recommends rezoning to either RA30 or RA20 when public water service is available. And as mentioned, there's already a 4-inch existing water line along Whitley Road right there. And of course, permitting higher density development will help to accommodate the significant residential growth that the plan anticipated for this area. If we return to the rezoning map, the request would not be unreasonable spot zoning because it is very similar in nature to the RA20 that's been established on the opposite side of the road. It would be the same density lots. It would be the same zoning classification as this portion right here of the Williams Ridge subdivision, which is also an RA30 zoning district that uses the cluster development. The subject property already is and will continue to be zoned for residential use, just like the surrounding properties. And although the request would permit smaller minimum lot areas and increased residential density, it would be more restrictive in terms of not allowing double-wide manufactured homes. The Technical Review Committee reviewed this back in January and recommended approval, subject to a list of suggested development conditions. The Planning Board, as I noted earlier, initially considered this on January 18th. After a motion to approve the request failed with a split vote of 3-3, the board voted unanimously to table the request. The board took up the request again on February 21st. At both meetings, Mr. Kevin Varnell with Stocks Engineering addressed the board on behalf of the applicant and in support of the request. Included in your report is a list of members of the public who addressed the board in opposition to the request at either or both of the meetings. The names with an asterisk attended and spoke at both meetings of the planning board. The concerns that they expressed regarded the increased residential density, traffic, crime, and litter, as well as the potential impact of the development on local school capacity, agricultural operations, law enforcement, and emergency response services. Ultimately, there was a split vote of the planning board, 5-3, to recommend approval of the request, as well as the statement of plan consistency and reasonableness, and subject to the recommended development conditions. Included among those conditions were some additional measures that were requested by the planning board and agreed to by the applicant. And those measures all involve the southern boundary of the property along the bottom side of your screen. From the road right-of-way back to the new stub road connection, there is a 3-foot-high, 5-foot-wide earthen berm to be constructed in the backyards of these lots right here to create a divide between this residential neighborhood and the agricultural property to the south. That's along the boundaries of lots 29 and 31 through 38. So if you see that shaded little rectangle right there, that's the 3-foot-high, 5-foot-wide earthen berm. When you come to the actual stub road, there will be a 6-foot-high wooden screening fence to be installed at the southern end of that public road right-of-way, at least until such time a connector road is constructed in the future, and that will prevent vehicles from using the end of that road to access the agricultural property to the south. From the road right-of-way back to the rear property line, there is a 20-foot wide screening buffer that will consist of preserved existing natural vegetation along the southern boundaries of Lot 28 right here and the common area lot. And then on the common area lot itself, from the front side back to the riparian buffer, there will be a fence, an NCDOT style standard woven wire fence about 4 feet high with wooden posts and woven wire between the posts along the southern boundary of that common area to serve as a marker between the common area and the adjacent property to the south. Again, these were measures that the planning board requested based on comments made by the public and that the applicant has agreed to. This is a legislative matter, and so the board is fully free to approve or deny based on its best judgment. There is a motion for approval and a motion for denial included as suggestions in your staff report. The motion to approve, well, both motions contain a statement of plan consistency and reasonableness. The development conditions, there are 6 listed. They are very standard and consistent with our recent residential rezonings, with the addition of condition number 4, which outlines those measures along the southern property line that we just discussed. And then, of course, the second motion to deny would be because the board finds the request unreasonable and not in the public interest, and that could be related to the proposed residential density, the actual specifics of the subdivision design, or just an overall incompatibility with the adjacent and surrounding area. And that concludes the staff report. I'll be glad to take any questions that the board has on the report.
Any commissioner have a question of Mr. Tyson at this time? One quick one, Mr. Tyson. When you start with a 30, do you have to have enough land to make each lot have 30,000 square feet before you cluster? Or did I say that correctly?
So let's say we're not in this particular case where it started as a 20, but if we had just a vacant tract of land and it was zoned R30, then you should not be able to use the cluster option to get more lots out of that property than you would if they all met the 30,000 standard square foot requirement.
Okay. And this instance passed that test, I guess.
Correct. In fact, every square foot you leave out under the 30,000 square foot standard has to be accounted for in the common area, or you have to provide 15% of the overall property. And in this case, 15% was higher than the amount of land that was left out of the lots. And so that became the standard that they had to meet, because you have to meet whichever one is higher. In this case, they had to provide 15%, and they provided in excess of 15%.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions?
I got one. Just see if I'm understanding right. If we left this thing zoned R40 as it is, you can still have lots down to 30,000 square feet, but not below 30,000.
Correct. If the
With the
rezoning were
cluster.
denied, the applicant could use the cluster option to subdivide it with 30,000 square foot lots, but he would still have to have a common area that accounted for what was left out.
In my humble way of thinking, if we go to this rezoning right here, it's the same thing as the 20s.
It is, and,
Same thing.
and that's evidenced by the fact that the site plan didn't need to change.
Right,
So in this
okay.
case, a request to RA20 and a request to RA30 with a cluster makes very little difference for this particular property.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this matter at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a public hearing at this time. If there's anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this rezoning item number 7 on our agenda, we'd ask you to come forward at this time and state your name and address for the record. Good morning.
Good morning. It's nice to see y'all's faces. I'm Heather Louise Finch, and I'm going to be speaking on behalf of my brother, Wade Raymond Finch, who's unable to speak. He's in service. We're at 4462 Stony Hill Church Road, and our property is the Louise S. Finch. I made some copies for you all of this. There were changes made to the R30 cluster lot. There is a 4,000 square footage difference in the square footage between the R20 and that R30 lot, cluster lot that was sent to us. The R20 had a total of 676,442 home lots, whereas the R30 had 662,058. And the open space for the R20 was 125,782, and R30 was 144,146. So the numbers did not add up from a square footage standpoint total between the housing and the open space, which made the R30 actually decrease by 4 different lots, actually went down in square footage for the, actually 5, and then 1 increased. So there were changes on that, and I made a spreadsheet for you all and did a side-by-side comparison of the R20 and the R30 cluster lot. And what this is going to show you, by reviewing the numbers, there is not a difference between the R20 and R30, and this is going to still result in some of the same concerns that we've had said in previous meetings: safety, a positive economic growth plan, ag issues, water, sewer, emergency services, and education, and along with other things. So also the two farmers who farmed that land previously, the Bizets and the Glovers, they will also tell you that it floods heavily right in the middle of the field, and exactly on that back where you have this nice wavy lines. They always had their tractors stuck in that field, so that's obviously going to be a huge concern. And as we know, if you can build houses and parking lots and trenches, but that water is going to still flow somewhere, even after the NCDEQ comes into place. So as you can see, and as y'all just mentioned, R30 cluster is essentially a walk around from R20. It's still the same number of lots, and it's actually less square footage and acres. And I just really would hopefully encourage you all to not support this because it's a walk around, and it's just, I think there's other things that we should, just to keep it as it is. Also, additionally, with the homes that have been previously approved, one thing I've noticed is there's not any fire hydrants in the cul-de-sacs or subdivisions. So I don't know, does Nash County have like a subdivision ordinance or anything when it comes to water? Because that's a lot of houses and just a few on the road. And as we've mentioned in like 2 meetings ago, the pipes, valves do not match with the Bailey Green Hornets and Green Pond Loop fire hydrants or the other ones in Bailey. So they're different, 6-inch and 4-inch. They don't hook on there. So I didn't know if there was anything that the county had regarding fire hydrants too, that are being put into these subdivisions, considering that's a lot of forest land. So that's something that I'm curious about as well. But anyways, thank you so much for your time and for all the work that you all do. I really appreciate it. My family does. And please, I encourage you to not support this proposed change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finch. Just for the public to answer your question, a county water system is built to supply domestic water only. It is not built in a fashion to be able to fight fires. Occasionally, we will have hydrants we can use, but we still rely on our volunteer fire department and tanker trucks for the most part. All right, anyone else wish to speak for or against this?
Good morning, I'm Jane Finch, and I'm speaking against this proposal on behalf of Louise Finch, my sister-in-law. As I think has been pointed out by my niece Heather Finch, this revision to R30 cluster is just to circumvent the R20. This high density is, we're jumping into it head over heels. And I know in previous hearings, Mr. Tyson would talk about spot zoning, but this is a massive case of spot zoning out here where there's done a lot of R20. And I plead with you to put the brakes on it till you study it more. I think growth in Nash County is so important and we need to do it, but I plead with you, we've got to do it right. I want you to think about the mill in Rocky Mount, which was built first. That mill or all those row houses over there. They didn't build those row houses and that mill went there. They built that mill and the row houses came. And we're just going out there, and this is a rural agricultural area, and for zoning in your own LDO and your own county documents, the purposes of zoning is compatibility to the community, and we can have residential growth and make it compatible, but I think going to high density like you'd have in a rural area back in the days when people were, development was going on, residential development evolved around areas of transportation and commerce, the railroad tracks. You look at Bailey, you look at Spring Hope, you look at Wilson, you look at Rocky Mount. That's where it all started. That was transportation. And then later it was the highways, that's where they did high density residential. And also on these cluster developments, the diagram there, see, it's just a little tip down there. In Section 9.4 of the Nash County Unified Development Ordinance on zoning, I ask you to study the density and dimensional requirements and to study these cluster developments and the requirements for the common areas. And I would say this proposal does not meet those requirements. That is to preserve stands of trees and natural vegetation, lakes, and then provide common screen space, and to make it accessible to the homeowners. He says there's a little footpath right there to get there. But if you go look and study and look in zoning books, more cluster developments would have the common space more spread out and available to the homeowners. It's just stuck over here. And those homeowners, are they going to walk over there, or are they going to go over on my sister-in-law's property that has got a beautiful forest? My brother was a forester, and it has a large selection of pine trees, a big collection of different varieties of pine trees, and we want to keep those pines there. And so I don't think it meets it. It's also to provide buffering for adjacent land uses of higher intensity, and to provide common recreation facilities. I really do not feel like this drawing meets that, and there's a lot of details. I would ask you to take a little time to look at that. I do think that they're trying to circumvent R20. I plead with you, I know you're doing a new land development plan, and that's in the process, as I understand it. Mr. Tyson made some comment, made me think that maybe you've already got a new plan. I don't know. It's still in progress. That I really think we want to have smart growth. Counties around us are having a lot of growth, and we want to be in there, and we want to be the place that people want to come live work, and play. Nash County is wonderful. I love Southern Nash County, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finch. Others that wish to speak? For or against? Morning, Mr. Varnell.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Kevin Varnell with Stocks Engineering here representing the owner. Just like Mr. Tyson said, the planning board made several recommendations or requests of the applicant in regards to berms or fences on the southern side of the property, and the applicant agreed to every one of those. The plan, we feel, and the planning department feels that it meets the land use plan and the UDO, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions, Mr. Varnell, from a commissioner? Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak for or against this item? Thank you. Adam, is that mic removable or not? Okay, I think we got it.
May I stand with Ms. Finch?
Absolutely.
Good to see you, boys. And thank you for the service you do for our county. But my name is Pearl Finch, and I'm from Bailey. And this property in question is an extension of my husband's family estate. And it's,
This is Ray's property. This is Louise's farm.
this is,
This is Ray's farm.
okay, and you need to get it back there to a R40. I can't talk well because I've had a stroke, but you understand me. Don't you, Mr. Belfield?
We understand you very well. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else wish to speak for or against this item? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Any other discussion from the board or any questions that you have after the public hearing? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion at this time to, excuse me, Mr. Aaron.
Mr. Tyson, with the R40, the developer can put double wides on and not required to run water? Or is that correct or not?
If they subdivided the property and built a road, they would be required to run water. But if it stays R40, it can be developed, those lots could be developed with double-wide mobile homes.
Anything else, Mr. Aaron? Okay. This time I'd entertain a motion to approve or deny the rezoning request.
Mr. Chairman, I make a
Mr.
motion
Gomes.
we deny this request for its unreasonableness and not in the public interest. It's back to the same design that we've had before. You're really looking at R20 and calling it something else, and I make a motion to deny.
Tyson, is the motion in proper form? What do you need?
Let me ask you, Mr. Cone, would you say that it is unreasonable and not in the public interest because of the 20,000 square foot lot density that would result? Then I think it is in the proper form.
Okay, and that's part of the motion then. All right, I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett or Wilkins, which one?
Both.
Both,
That's
okay.
fine.
All right, any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is another public hearing on conditional rezoning request CZ 220202 for the Lamb subdivision. Mr. Tyson?
The Lamb subdivision is on the screen. It is in a similar situation to the last one. It was initially proposed as a request to RA20 CZ. However, on February 15th, prior to its consideration by the planning board, which followed on February 21st, the applicant revised this request to be an RA30 CZ zoning district, but again, utilizing the cluster development option. The original plan included an open space lot right here in the southwestern corner of the property. And of course, in the conversion to a cluster development, that became a mandatory common area. The subject property is outlined in red on the two maps that you have before you. It's about 22.7 acres owned by Brian K. Lamb. It's on the east side of Highway 581 South, and it is in the R40 zoning district, you can see from the green color. It is just north of the ETJ, or extraterritorial jurisdiction, of the town of Bailey. And so on the zoning map on the right-hand side, this gray color in the southern part of the map is the extraterritorial jurisdiction of Bailey, the extent to which Bailey's planning and zoning regulations go beyond their municipal limits. And the subject property is the first property that's actually in the county's jurisdiction, and it's zoned R40. The property includes one dilapidated dwelling at 11079 South NC Highway 581, which is planned for removal. And the eastern boundary of the property over here is defined by a stream that may be subject to a 50-foot wide riparian buffer. And you'll see that reflected on the sketch plan. The property owner has submitted this rezoning request in order to develop the 27-lot Lamb subdivision. It is very similar to the request we just had. It would reduce the minimum lot size from 40,000 to 30,000, and then the use of the cluster development option would reduce that further to 20,000, meaning that every lot would have to have at least 20,000 square feet with the required common area. Double-wide manufactured homes would no longer be permitted, whereas they are permitted currently under the R40. And the property, because this is a conditional rezoning, could only be developed in accordance with the sketch plan that's proposed. Stocks Engineering designed this sketch plan on behalf of the property owner. None of the proposed 27 new residential lots would be accessed directly from the highway, but rather they would all be accessed from the new interior road network of 3 new interior roads. You'll note that they provide stub road connections to the immediately adjacent properties to the north and to the south for future connectivity should those adjacent properties ever develop residentially. It does utilize the cluster development option, so this is our mandatory common area right here. It is accessed by a 10-foot wide pedestrian access easement that leads from the road between lots 18 and 19 right there. The sketch plan designates 3.92 acres of common area, which exceeds the calculated minimum requirement of 3.41 acres of common area. The sketch plan includes a shared mailbox kiosk within the road right-of-way, and again, the developer would be required to construct new water lines along the new public roads to connect it to the existing county water system. The NCDOT district engineer has advised that the construction of a left turn lane in the highway will likely be required for the issuance of the driveway permit needed to begin construction on this road. We turn our attention to the land development plan. Of course, the area in gray would be part of the town of Bailey's land development plan, with the counties beginning with this property and extending north. It's in that yellow color, so it's designated as suburban growth area. where rezoning to RA30 or RA20 is supported with the presence of public water, and there is a 12-inch Nash County public water line running along the highway already. The zoning map here, this request would not be unreasonable spot zoning as long as this was the beginning of an intentional conversion of this area to a slightly higher density. The request only allows for a relatively slight increase in residential density over the current rezoning district, but it would be the first RA30 district established in this immediate area, as you can tell from the zoning map. The subject property already is and will continue to be zoned for residential use. And of course, it will allow smaller minimum lot areas and increased residential density, but would remove the opportunity to develop it with double-wide manufactured homes. The Technical Review Committee considered this on February 14, recommended approval. Planning Board considered this on February 21st. Mr. Varnell with Stocks Engineering addressed the board on behalf of the applicant and in support of the request. There is a list in your report of 7, I believe, members of the public who addressed the board in opposition to the request. Their concerns regarded the presence and proximity of the electrical transmission lines, which are up in this vicinity of the property in the north. The potential increase in residential density, traffic, and trespassing, as well as the potential impact of the development on the county's water supply, local school capacity, agricultural operations, law enforcement, and emergency response services. Again, with a split vote of 5-3, the Planning Board recommended approval of the request, as well as a statement of plan consistency and reasonableness that's included in the report, and a list of recommended development conditions. This is legislative, so the board is free to approve or deny based on the board's best judgment. There are 6 development conditions recommended. Again, they are standard for the residential rezonings that we've seen in recent years. There is a reminder for the developer under condition number 5 that the construction of a left turn lane within the highway's public right-of-way shall be required if or as determined by the NCDOT. And with that, I will conclude the staff report and be happy to take any questions that the board has.
Any questions, Mr. Tyson, at this time?
I got one question. So,
Cool.
could you go back to the slide that showed the Bailey ETJ?
So that would be the
That's
gray
it.
right
Yeah.
here.
So the gray area, those homes in that area, what is the zoning in that area?
I don't know, but I think we could possibly check for you. I'd have to consult the GIS, and I can do
That's
that during the public
That's
hearing and
fine.
have an answer for you.
Other questions, Mr. Tyson? Thank you, Mr. Tyson.
Thank you.
I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this item number 8 at this time. Moved by Commissioner Leggett, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a public hearing for this rezoning request on item 8. And if there's anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this item, we'd like you to come forward at this time and state your name and address for the record. Good morning again.
Good morning. Jane Finch. My address is 1810 Craig Street, Raleigh, North Carolina. This property, the far north of this property is owned by my mother and I, and my mother's home is just north of it, and my husband and I own my childhood home, right beside this property. So the purpose, this is a hearing for a rezoning. And the purpose of zoning is compatible growth development. Compatible. This is a rural farm community. And where a rural farm community going Where? To what? What do we want it to be? The reality is we are moving away from being this lovely rural farming community. But how are we going to make sure we get there right? Changing the zoning should be done with due and careful deliberation for long-term consequences that will impact the land, air, water, community, and our region for many generations. This land was in my father's family, owned by my grandfather. This land that my mother lives on, and this land being developed, was my Uncle Jasper's property. My grandfather died in 1945 at the end of the war. Mr. Adams speaks frequently about it consistent with the land development plan and concerns about spot zoning. And even just a minute ago, he alluded this may be spot zoning. And to establish to you that it is, you need to get the GIS map. It dances around on me, but I've spent a lot of time studying it. For this area along the entire corridor of Highway 581 from the city limits of Bailey all the way to the city limits of Spring Hope, with about a 2-mile sweep on either side of 581, there is no R20, none. There is one small area of R30 at Flood's Chapel Crossroads. There are no R30 clusters. The only R30 cluster is over there on Stony Hill Church Road, which is about 3 miles from Green Gables Crossroads. Growth is important and vital to Nash County. I'm an advocate of that. My mother's a longtime advocate of that, but merely packing as many houses as we can onto an acre of land is not the solution for meaningful and, most importantly, constructive growth. Mindful growth has specific characteristics. It's thoughtful and deliberately planned, contributes more than it takes, and it serves the community. At the last meeting, it was pointed out that the already newly permitted R20 zonings, there still lay more dormant lots than active. We all know the reasons for developers to seek these rezoning is to get high-density subdivision to make more money. It's okay to want to make more money, but we've got to factor in the community. And it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get more taxes to cover all the expenses and necessities that people will have. There is an alternative solution for developers to how they handle it, and many of these new developers, such as Mr. Lamb that's doing this is their first venture as a developer. He's not a developer, he's a farmer. And the mindset of a farmer is high yield. How many sweet potatoes can I get off that field? How much soybeans, how better? And now they're carrying that same mentality as how many houses can I get on that property? That is not how we need to go about growth in Nash County. I want us to do it right. I love this community, I love this area, and it can be done right. And to just keep doing this, and I understand y'all have got an engineering firm in Raleigh who's very reputable, and you're working on that, and I ask you to please pause and let's look, especially this 581 corridor. I've had many realtors tell me this is where it's going to happen. And if we go out there and stick in packed subdivisions, and I want to tell you, that curve right there where this is, there's been a number of people in my lifetime that I knew killed in that curve. This is a very dangerous entranceway. I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Others that wish to speak for or against this? And I do ask you to hold your applause in our public hearings if you would. Someone else wish to speak? For or against? Entertain a excuse me. Thought you were just letting her in. I didn't realize you were coming forward.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
My name is Ashley Story. My address is 1810 Craig Street, Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'll be brief. I have 3 disclosures mixed in with my comments. The first is I'm married to Jane Finch, and that makes me Pearl Finch's son-in-law. So other than this group, No one's hearing more about the R20 and R30 activity in Nash County than I am. My kitchen table looks a lot like Mr. Tyson's office. I'm not a citizen of Nash County. I grew up in Johnston County, and I've watched Johnston County grow dramatically. It's grown up by population-wise by 25% in the last 12 years, and Nash County's been sort of flat. Growth can be good, but I submit to you, the way Johnston County tackled their growth was not like this. It was not reaching out and having brush fires of R20 and R30 cluster attempts. That's not what got them to what is good a part of their growth. One of the gifts that Nash County has is the land. Nash County is actually the 32nd largest county out of 100 counties in North Carolina. So there's this gift of land that gives you a lot of opportunity. And I have trouble mixing that amount of land in with trying to cram more into smaller areas. It doesn't seem to fit using your gifts the right way. My last disclosure is I'm actually a retired land use attorney, and I've had the opportunity to appear in more than 20 counties on land use matters, from Asheville, the city, to New Hanover, the county. So I know how hard this job is, that you've got a lot on your plate and you have a lot to deal with. I think that as you back up and look at a more comprehensive plan, which really is the answer to all of this, it's the answer to the brush fires, is to step back and come up with a better way. I think what we see is R40 served this corridor pretty well. If it's going to change, it needs to change in a very comprehensive manner. If you look at your old ordinance the way it is now, 1-3.2 gives a lot of the things to look for when you do rezone. And it's all about congestion. It's all about what serves the public, not what serves the developers. I represent a lot of developers. I love developers, but it still has to start with what serves the public. That's the crux of what happens. I do think this. If you take the time to back up and do a more comprehensive look at this, I don't know what you'll do with this piece of land, but I submit probably then and now, it wouldn't be R30 cluster or R20. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? Yes, sir.
My name is Gray Joyner, and I reside at 10922 South NC 581, the property directly across the proposed subdivision. When I received this in the mail, the map, it says right here, approximately 22.71 acres to be rezoned from R40 to RA30. Well, that sounds good. But what this map is not showing, or what it's not but about 13.5 acres that are putting the houses on. The rest of it is wetlands. In other words, the piece of property that got drawn off in the red, it's not accurate because it's wetlands. That's a lot of homes for 13.5 acres. And I talked to people about it, but also I called the DOT and talked with the DOT about the turning lane. He said, yes, it had to be a turning lane because it would be required because the number of cars and trucks going along the road. There again, on the map, no turning lane. And why isn't a turning lane shown on here? Number 3, they keep this area right here. If you put the map back up, put the map back up. Okay. That area on going down south, then going there. You see that area drawn off? That is the wetlands area. They keep calling it common, the common area. The common area. Where they're getting the common area from, I don't know. But that is the area, wetlands. It can't be rezoned to R30 anyway. So how they going to rezone 22.71 acres to R30? So that land is common area, they're going to rezone that R32? It don't add up. And my suggestion is, let's table this and get it right and start over. I highly recommend we start over. When I leave my driveway, I can go 1/2 mile south, 1/2 mile north. Everybody's on an acre lot. And it is 70 homes in that immediate area. And you could do better than this, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. Others that wish to speak?
I am Connie Finch Joyner, and my residence is also the same as Greg's, 10922 South NC Highway 581, Bailey. Yes, we are directly impacted by this arrangement. We are not fighting growth. We are begging and pleading for a mastery of growth for the county. There are so many countryside roads other than a direct development of this capacity directly off of a busy highway of speed limit 55, which y'all all know is 60 and 65. Our home in 1982, when we were married, we developed this property. We lived there for 3 years, and we left for a short time and returned to the property. But so much growth had even occurred then, we thought, that was not country. But we decided that if we were going to go back and do something with this home, which at that time was approximately 30 feet from the road, because it was a dirt path back in the day. And we took the old farmhouse and remodeled it, but to do that, we wanted to move it back off the road. So we had to follow the county plans at the time, which meant that we had to dig another well, and we had to put in a new septic tank, and all of that had to be 50 foot from our home. So we were forced to have our home on an acre plus in order to accommodate the needs at that time. We're still there. You know, we have that well that's 50 foot away. We have a septic tank that is 50 foot away, and we have electrical power lines where our home has to be 30 foot away. So we're constrained right there, but we've maintained that, and we've tried to maintain our home to be beautiful. We have also paid our taxes every year on time. My point being on this is that it does hurt to see the countryside to go to such capacity of building tiny mini cities, you know, like out on Stony Hill Church Road, where homes are sharing a driveway out in the country as if they were in town, in a big city. We rode over there yesterday to see that those little homes that are so close to the road, that are sharing a driveway for 2 homes, have 5 and 6 cars piled in the driveway. There's no landscaping that's taking place there. There are no trees that are planted on that countryside. It's just kind of sad. Growth is going to happen, though, and yes, farmers can take their property and put whatever they want to on it. They can sell it to whomever they want. I spoke with Brian Lamb just a few months ago when he was taking trees off of that property. Went over and just spoke to him. Never spoke to Brian. I didn't really know who he was. Know his family very well. Good people. Good people. And I said, well, Brian, you know, you're taking some trees off of the property over here. Man, you must be thinking about developing it. He'd only owned the property 2 years. My cousin sold it to him for about $3,000 an acre. It's a good money pit for him. But you know, I guess he had a change in plans. Or maybe he didn't want me to know. I shared with him that I've got about 11.5 acres lot that directly joins this property. That's the first piece of property in the city jurisdiction. And I said, well, you know, I thought about developing that property. Even told him what the name would be after my granddaddy. He didn't ever say anything. I said, well, if you're ever interested in doing anything out here, you know, maybe we could go together on it. I'm sure that even my cousin Jane and her family would have in years to come if it's done right. But even on the little part of acreage that I had, if it would be permissible, because of the curve in the road there, I'm not sure, I wouldn't want to put any more than a home on an acre because it's countryside. It's a busy highway. This is not a side country road off of a main highway. This is a main highway. Again, speed limit 55, where motorcycles fly up that road going 80. I'll tell you this, it's interesting that on a main highway where someone's wanting to put in a cluster home division, that in order to do that, you got to put a turning lane. Have y'all ever seen that? Have you ever seen a main highway have a turning lane for a housing development? I'm sure there probably are some, but I don't think there are any in Bailey. I don't know if there are any in Nash County. I don't know. I'll tell you another thing. There are many times when I am turning left to get into my driveway, waiting for cars going south as I'm headed north, turning left to get into my drive. I'm waiting for cars to turn, and I'm at a total standstill, and here comes an 18-wheeler behind me, or even a flying car for that matter, and I'll tell you what I do. I hit the gas pedal quick because I'm afraid they might run into me. I don't think that would happen perhaps with the turning lane, but I think that there would be other issues with that. I echo my brilliant cousin, Jane, who has studied this county. She's from Raleigh, an attorney, her husband an attorney. We're good people, y'all. We're good people. We appreciate what we have inherited from our forefathers. They were hard-working farmers, and we've been hard-working people. And I echo my cousin Jane in stating that we'd like to see development growth done right. Something that in the future that we can still appreciate our beautiful countryside. I want to say, this fella right here, the guy is brilliant. And I'm going to tell you, man, you're brilliant. He's got his stuff together, and it looks fantastic. We're happy to have him on board. He can give a great presentation. But I'll tell you this. When we attended the planning committee meeting, I was so embarrassed. I was embarrassed because not a single one of those persons had any questions, had any backup, had any proof of anything that was happening that was great and wonderful based on statistics and facts that had already been approved and moving forward. It's okay to approve something, but are you really doing your job? I'm not saying you guys, But are you really doing your job for the county, for our citizens? There's maybe 2 families here today that are speaking up on behalf of our love for where we live. All this growth, it's pretty disgusting in some point of the matter. It's great and wonderful, but do you really foresee what's happening for Nash County? Are you really, is your heart and your mind really there as if it were your own property? I just say, it hasn't even been a year, not even just a few months, where we just went by and saw homes yesterday that were built as these cluster units, and already seeing no care. So 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 and 25 years from now, what is your work going to look like? Something you're really proud of for the growth of this county? For the welfare of your citizens? Or is it going to be soft soap and despair? You're good people. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. Think as if it were your own family, your own community, and the goodness of your works. I thank you, and we appreciate you, and please reconsider this to an R40. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Anyone else wish to speak for or against?
Good morning.
Good morning,
My
sir.
name is Richard Brantley. I'm a farmer in the Nash County area, and I own land across the road from this development. And number one is, it is very unsafe place for development with 581 and that curve in it coming out of Bailey, heading north. I know Miss Joyner, she has a hard time getting out of her driveway already. Something really needs to be done there. I know you're talking about a turn lane and all, but I don't know how that's going to work, but it's, that's number one, I think, on the list. But number two, I think R30 is, with the cluster, is just a camouflage 20. I think 40 would be a lot better. It's 40 everywhere else around there. And I think you need to look at the county EMS and get them fully funded and fully staffed before you approve any more subdivisions, 20, 30s, or 40s, because it's not fully staffed right now and it's in bad shape. I think y'all know that, but somebody's got to look out for all these people coming to Nash County. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bratton.
Hello again. I want you to know that that land would be mine if we'd have known he was going to turn it into a residential place, because I would have bought it and it would not have all these problems. But I thank you for listening, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finch. Others wish to speak for or against?
I'd like to, yes, I'd like to put this down first. It would go this way? Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Vicki Griffin. I'm at 11273 South NC Highway 581. So I am in the ETJ here, very close property as is my father. Lived here all my life.
Could you use the mic when you speak?
I'm sorry.
So it will be recorded.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I live in this area here, and I've lived here almost all of my life. I feel like the ETJ is R30, but I'm sure you guys are getting that checked. I propose that you deny this request for the following reasons. First, Highway 581 corridor is not only zoned R40, it is R40. Up and down 581 leading to and from Bailey, up to Fletch Chapel, on to Spring Hope and south towards Buckhorn, almost all this property is R40, which is conducive to the beauty and inviting nature of our area, and particularly this highway. Second, we have lovely home developments on 581, and they adhere to a strict R40, no clustering. One is this area here. Madison and Todd Roads is actually called Baker Place. I have some photos. Can I just lay these on top? Well, this is Baker Place. Here's a picture of homes here. Here. This is what a nice R40 looks like. The land property is located across the road from this Baker Place, within some feet, as you can see. By contrast, I took a photo of the R20 and 30s that have been recently approved. This is what we see. House, 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 house. Here's another photo. House, 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 house. It's too close. It's too close to retain our appeal on 581, which needs protecting. Approving the R30 rezone is not compatible on this highway. Third, the appeal of Nash County is natural because of its open farmland, wooded areas, well-kept homes, and our quaint towns, but especially our inviting residents. Before this seeming rush to the R20-30 rezoning, we have enjoyed many years of varieties of people moving to our area from all over the United States to start afresh in our beloved Nash County. Keeping the zoning R40 results in a natural progress of methodical growth while keeping the charm that drew them here. I'd like to put a face on this third reason to deny this rezoning request. I've become acquainted with a delightful couple who moved here from out of state. They could have moved anywhere in the United States, but they chose Nash County because of its aesthetic appeal. Within the last year, however, their property has fallen victim to the neighboring property owner's rush to sell off lots. I am sad to tell you that he recently and dejectedly said, "If I had known this, I would have never moved here." Mr. Lamb would like his property rezoned R30 for his subdivision. Well, I, and probably most of us, would like to see it remain food-producing farmland. So, what is the solution? The solution is denial. It's obvious. If you deny his rezoning request, both parties win. Mr. Lamb would be free to build his subdivision if he wanted to on R30 lots. No permission needed. I hope he would avoid the cluster. And we would continue to enjoy the beauty that the 581 corridor allows with R40. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Have others that wish to speak on this item?
Good morning again. Kevin Varnell with Stocks Engineering, representing the owner. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions of Mr. Varnell?
Has any site study been done on this tract here other than just on paper? I see on the east side, I guess the far east side, kind of the half of that is a very wet-natured soil. You know, the description of it says frequently flooded.
Right.
And half of those lots is in a soil type that's frequently flooded. I was just wondering how those were able to be laid out like that if it's really poorly drained soil.
You're talking about the lots that are fronting the main road coming in that back up to it, or which lots are you referring to?
No,
The ones off the cul-de-sac?
that BB soil type, it's a bib loam soil type
Right, so.
on the east side.
Yeah, so what you see on the sketch, there are contour lines that go across. And so every one you see is a 2-foot contour coming up. So from that stream in the back that runs here, you can see these, by the time you get up to the front or way up the hill, there has been a soils evaluation done, and there believed to be enough septic system locations for both the septic and repair on each lot. And obviously, that'll be confirmed by the Nash County Environmental Health Department. But yes, I would agree that there is a stream to the rear of the properties. These are very large properties. I think they're over 40,000 square feet. Some of them, there are some down towards the very bottom that get into the 20s. But for the most part, these are very long, deep lots. So just to make sure you guys are aware, the difference of lot width between R20, R30, and R40 is all the same. They're all 100-foot wide lots. So if you're looking at the previous pictures that were shown, the houses that look like they're closer together are actually drawn on the same lot sizes, and all of them can be 100-foot wide. So that does not change regardless of the zoning that you're in.
Well, that still leaves, most of these lots along that side are, I would say, around 32,000 square foot. So if half of it is really unsuitable soils, you've only got about 15,000 square foot of suitable soil.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Varnell? Thank you, sir. Anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Public hearing is now closed. Any other comments or questions from a commissioner?
I'd like to circle back to Commissioner Outlaw's question about how the property in Bailey's ETJ is zoned. This is an R40 zoning district in Bailey, so very consistent with the green in the county's R40 as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions of Mr. Tyson, or any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion, we deny this request based on its unreasonableness, not in the public interest, and the density of the lots.
Have a motion, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett, motion by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to item number 9, which is a third public hearing on conditional rezoning request CZ 220203 for the Stone Wedding Venue. Mr. Tyson?
This is different from the previous two rezonings because this one is more commercial in nature. The subject property is highlighted in red on the aerial photo on the left and the zoning map on the right. It is all or portions of 2 tracts of land totaling about 15 acres owned by Tracy H. and Lisa S. Stone. It's located on the west side of South NC Highway 231. It's north of the town of Middlesex, and this green color denotes that it is in the A1 agricultural zoning district. The site is currently undeveloped. It is immediately adjacent to an existing dwelling up front at 5574 South NC Highway 231. that is owned by the same owner as this property that is subject to the rezoning. And so that is the applicant that lives immediately adjacent to this property. The site does not have access to public water or sewer, so any future development in the near term would utilize a private on-site well and septic system. The property owner has submitted this rezoning request to rezone the subject property from A1 to A1CZ, specifically for the development of an event and conference venue to be known as the Stone Wedding Venue. The board will recall about a year or so ago adopting regulations for event and conference venues. That was specifically in anticipation of the Factory 633 facility on Halifax Road. The event and conference venue is permitted in this A1 zoning district, but it does require the establishment of a conditional zoning district and several development standards that must be met. This is a conditional rezoning, so of course there's the opportunity to attach reasonable site-specific conditions to an approval with the consent of the applicant. If we review the proposed site plan for the property, we will go through the development standards that are required for an event and conference venue. First, the property must be in an A1 RC and GC district, and of course we've already established this one is in an A1 zoning district, which permits the development of an event and conference venue. In terms of minimum lot size, an event and conference venue must be located on a property with a lot area of at least 10 acres. The property that is proposed is a combination of this lot and a portion of the residential lot that will be folded into that property. That will make it a new total of 15.14 acres, which obviously exceeds the minimum requirement of 10 acres. The principal access to the event and conference venue must be from a paved collector or higher capacity road, and obviously South NC Highway 231 will meet that requirement. In terms of separation distances, the primary structures used to host events and or any outdoor event use areas shall be located no closer than 200 feet to the property line of an immediately adjacent agriculturally zoned, residentially zoned, and or residentially used property, unless the property already includes a legally established commercial or industrial land use. You've got two buildings here that could potentially be used to host events on the property, a 6,400 square foot venue building and a 1,600 square foot open outdoor shelter. Both of those would be located more than 200 feet from any immediately adjacent property line. And so it does meet, or it exceeds the minimum separation distance. The second separation requirement has to do with property that would be adjacent and commercially or industrially zoned, and there is none of that in this case. Number D2, parking spaces and loading areas may be located within the required separation distance. You'll note that part of the parking area is located in that 200-foot separation distance. However, it is a minimum of 100 feet or more away from the adjacent property line. Any accessory structures, smaller accessory structures have to meet the standard minimum building setbacks, but there are no smaller accessory structures proposed. Noise generated by the event and conference venue would have to be in accordance with Nash County's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 16, Article 3, noise, and the Sheriff's Office is charged with the enforcement of any noise violations as necessary. Adequate parking spaces to accommodate the venue must be provided, although the paving of those parking spaces is not necessarily required due to their irregular use for events. You'll note a 61 parking area to be established on the right-hand side of the facility. Per the UDO, 1 parking space is required per every 5 persons based on the maximum building occupancy. So when the design of the interior of this building is finalized, there may have to be some adjustments to the number of parking spaces depending upon the final calculated building occupancy. Finally, screening. Any structures, outdoor use areas, or parking and loading areas associated with the event and conference venue and located within 100 feet of an immediately adjacent lot must be screened. In this case, all structures, outdoor use areas, and parking or loading areas are more than 100 feet from an immediately adjacent lot. So there is no screening that is mandated by the ordinance. Screening could be requested from the applicant as a condition, and then if that condition were attached to the rezoning, that would be enforceable by the county. But no additional screening is triggered mandatorily by the ordinance. If we turn our attention to the land use plan, you'll see this is in the suburban growth area. Their request is partially consistent with the recommendations of the plan. First of all, the plan designates it as suburban growth area. The plan supports the development within this area of very limited non-residential commercial land uses that meet specific locational criteria. So the first thing, in order for this to be a limited commercial land use, it is limited by its conditional nature. That means that the proposed event and conference venue facility will be limited by the site plan that it is proposed, as well as by any attached conditions, and it is limited to staying just an event and conference venue. A proposal to change it to a different commercial use would require intervention and approval by the Board of Commissioners. Secondly, the plan recommends frontage along and access to either a major state highway or secondary road. And certainly it does have frontage along and direct access to South NC Highway 231, which has an annual average daily traffic of 1,100 vehicle trips per day. Third, it should be located at a major intersection. This property is not located at an intersection. It is also not located in proximity to other commercial land uses. However, being located next to an intersection or to other commercial land uses would not necessarily be compatible with the desired rural setting that would be appropriate for a wedding venue like this. And so in that way, you see that although it is only partially consistent with the plan's recommendations, it is possible that the specific needs of a wedding venue were not under consideration when these recommendations were drafted. Finally, the proposed event and conference venue will be located back from the road right-of-way with spatial separation from the other existing residential development that's found along the road. This request would not be considered unreasonable spot zoning because we are not changing the underlying base zoning. It's zoned A1. It'll continue to be zoned A1. The applicant is just requesting permission to develop the wedding venue in that zone. The Technical Review Committee considered this on February 14th and recommended approval, subject to a list of development conditions. The Planning Board considered it on February 21st. Mr. Kevin Varnell with Stocks Engineering addressed the board on behalf of the applicant in support of the request. There were no members of the public present who addressed the board either in support or opposition to the request. Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval, as well as the suggested statement of plan consistency, subject to the recommended development conditions. There are 3 recommended development conditions. Of course, the first is that the property could only be developed as an event and conference venue facility only, and only in accordance with the approved site plan. Number 2, we've already mentioned the final number of parking spaces may need to be adjusted once the final building occupancy has been calculated for the venue building. And finally, number 3 is a list of the other permits from state agencies and local county agencies that will be required prior to a construction authorization of the 2 buildings. This is a legislative matter, as the other 2 were, so the board is free to approve or deny it based on your best judgment. You have a motion for approval and a motion for denial, and I will pause there and take any questions that the board has.
Any questions for Mr. Tice at this time? Just one quick one, Mr. Tyson. If this, you mentioned that this was in the urban growth area. If it were not, would it be any difference in whether we could approve it or not?
No. The the land use plan never prevents you from being able to approve or deny a request. You simply have to address whether the application is consistent and in what ways with the recommendations of the plan. So this could be approved in any, potentially in any category of land use area that's on the map.
What I thought, I just want to make sure. Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a public hearing to discuss this matter. If there's someone here that wishes to speak for or against it, we'd be glad to hear from you at this time. Good morning, sir.
Kevin Varnell, Stocks Engineering, representing the owner. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions of Mr. Varnell? Thank you, sir. Others wish to speak for or against? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on the motion? All in favor of this motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Public hearing is now closed. Any other questions of Mr. Tyson? Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion, we approve this conditional rezoning request along with the statement of plan consistency and reasonableness.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well.
Thank you.
I'm going to call for a 8-minute recess at this time, and we will reconvene in about 8 to 10 minutes. Thank you.
8 minutes.
Call us back in session at this time, and we will be starting with item number 10. And I call on Andy Hagee to make this presentation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yeah, this is obviously a public hearing for the inducement agreement approval for Project START, which is the Sonovatech project that we've been hearing about quite a bit lately. And if you don't mind, I'll read the resolution.
Yes, sir.
Whereas the Local Government Act of 1925 in CGS 158-7.1 authorizes cities and counties to make appropriations for the purposes of aiding and encouraging the location of manufacturing enterprises and to assist in locating industrial and commercial plants in the county, which will, in the discretion of the governing body of the city or county, increase the population, taxable property, and business prospects of the city or county. And whereas Nash County has been requested to make an economic incentive grant to an industrial prospect that has indicated its intent to purchase and unfit a facility located in Nash County, create a substantial number of jobs at its facility, and make a substantial capital investment in machinery, equipment, and at its facility. And whereas the company considered locating its operation in other communities if it were unable to obtain the cooperation and assistance of Nash County for the purchase and upfit of its facility. And whereas the Nash County Board of Commissioners believes that the purchase and upfitting of the company's facility in Nash County will, 1, increase the population of Nash County, 2, increase the tax base of Nash County, 3, create substantial tax revenues, and 4, generally serve the citizens of Nash County by an increase in employment in Nash County and generation of tax revenues for the Nash County. And whereas the Nash County Board of Commissioners proposes to appropriate to the company an economic inducement, a percentage of the net increase of ad valorem taxes resulting from the company's purchase and upfitting of the facility, and a substantial capital investment in machinery and equipment, and to pay such percentage beginning April 1st, 2023, and continuing until April 1st, 2028. The economic inducement shall be based upon the company's capital investment, the company's increase in its net and valorem tax value in Nash County, or not less than $10 million, and the creation of 25 jobs in the first year in the company's operation of the facility. And whereas on March the 7th, 2022, a public hearing will be held by Nash County Board of Commissioners to consider the appropriation and approval of this economic incentive grant and the approval of an inducement agreement containing the associated terms and specific conditions that apply to this grant.
Any questions of Andy on this item? Thank you, sir. Entertain a motion to open the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a public hearing to consider this inducement agreement. If there's anyone here that wishes to speak for it or against it, we'd be glad to hear from you at this time. This is going down in the Middlesex Industrial Park. Anyone here to speak on it? Seeing no movement, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? The public hearing is now closed. Any other questions for staff from any commissioner? And anything else you need to add, or you good?
I'm good.
Mr. Durham, we in proper form?
Yes, sir. Just need approval of the inducement agreement.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the inducement agreement.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins. Did I do that already? No, okay. A second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Inducement agreement stands approved, sir. Right, thank you all for your hard work on this item. We'll now move to item number 11, which is approval of a tax-exempt loan for the Westmount Volunteer Fire Department. I'll call on Scott Rogers to make the request. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Morning. I am here on behalf of the Westmount Fire Department. They are seeking financing through Southern Bank for a new piece of fire apparatus in the amount of $312,000. The type of loan that they are applying for does require approval by this board, but certainly in no ways obligates the county in any way. So I would ask you to approve that the Westmount Fire Department be allowed to apply for this loan.
Any questions?
I assume that's not a fire truck. It's not enough money.
It is a fire truck, to be honest. I just don't think they're financing the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
But you are right. I have never seen the increase in cost of fire apparatus like I have in the last few months. And not only just the cost, but the delivery time. It takes
2 years or more.
Yes, sir. It is.
I saw Nashville's thing. They had their meeting. All right, entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Motion by Commissioner Outlaw, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Next item is item number 12, is the interlocal agreement with the town of Red Oak. I'll call on Mr. Jonathan Boone to make this presentation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners.
Morning.
As you're aware, the county partnered with the town of Red Oak and the town of Dorchester, for that matter, to develop the Northern Ash water system. And part of that partnership involves financial commitment to assist the county with development of the district in the early stages when really financing becomes more of a challenge. And with the availability of American Rescue Plan Act monies that the town of Dorchester received, they had requested that the agreement they had made back in 2017 be formalized in an interlocal agreement. So with the county attorney's help, we drafted an agreement, went back and forth a couple of times with the town of Red Oak. and ended up with the document that you have before you today. So basically, this really just, again, formalizes the agreement that was made back in 2017. We'd ask that the commissioners approve that agreement. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Questions of Mr. Boone? And I think you told me Dorchers already had one that worked for them.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Arrington. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
If no one objects, I'm going to ask that we move item 16 up in front of 13, and go ahead and take care of 16 first. We have a consultant in the audit has been patient, and plus we're probably paying him about an hour, and I want to get him turning loose quick as we can. I'm not sure about that part of it, but Patsy, if you'll tell us about item 16.
Yes, sir. First, I'd like to introduce Mike Barnett with McDavid Associates. We have a long-standing relationship with them on a number of housing projects and community development projects, and we just appreciate him coming today. The first item for consideration is the budget for and the program management and technical housing services agreement for Nash County's portion of the Down East Home Consortium. In October, we entered into an agreement with the Down East Home Consortium regarding a plan to utilize the funds. The agreement was amended in November when Sharpsburg decided to administer its own funds. The City of Rocky Mount remains the lead agency per the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development of the Down East Home Consortium. And although Nash County is no longer a member of the Down East Home Consortium, there are remaining funds allocated for previous years that need to be used in Nash County. Nash County plans to administer its part of the Down East Home Consortium program with assistance from a qualified consultant, as we do our other housing programs. This will include rehabilitation of owner-occupied, low to moderate income, single-family housing in Nash County, with priority given to households located in the jurisdictions of current or then members of the Down East Home Consortium in Nash County, which are Bailey, Dorches, Middlesex, Nashville, Sharpsburg, Spring Hope, Whitakers, and Nash County outside of Rocky Mount. Particularly, we'll be assisting those with remaining unspent allocations. It will also include the administration of current year funds for 3 municipalities that are located partly or wholly within Nash County, which are Middlesex, Spring Hope, and Whitakers. And the City of Rocky Mount will continue to administer funds for housing projects within its jurisdiction, and Edgecombe County, Tarboro, and Sharpsboro will administer funds for housing projects within their jurisdictions. Nash County received applications for the Down East Home Consortium from November 1st through the end of December. We issued a request for qualifications for a qualified program manager on January 20th. We emailed or mailed the RFQ to 267 firms, many of which were historically underutilized businesses. We received 3 responses on February 10th. The Housing Committee reviewed the responses and unanimously recommended that we negotiate with McDavid Associates, resulting in the attached agreement, which is in your packet, which has been reviewed by the county attorney. The project budget is $1,047,858 in reconciliation funds and $15,095 in current fiscal year allocations, for a total of $1,062,953. Program management services would not exceed $85,000 for environmental reviews and program management, and $142,500 for housing management services. for a total of $227,500. Attached is the Down East Home Consortium Program Management and Technical Housing Services Agreement and the related project budget ordinance, which the finance director and I worked on together. And we recommend that you approve the agreement and the related project budget ordinance. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them, and I'm sure Mike Barnett would as well.
Thank you, Patsy. Any questions on this item? This is an item that has been a long time coming to finish up spending these funds, and I'm glad to see it getting close, and I hope we finish it up before the end of the year. I said the same thing last year, but we're closer than we were. No questions? All right, would entertain a motion to approve the request.
Move for approval?
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins. Is there a second?
That was Leggett.
Leggett, I'm sorry. Motion by Commissioner Leggett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Arrington. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a light sign. Motion carries. Thank you for Mike for being here this morning. Thank you very much. I know you learned a lot about zoning and probably didn't know anything about it before you got here. I'm sure you know a lot more than any of us.
Appreciate the education.
Yes, sir. It was free. Well, free to you. I guess we're paying you since you left Farmer or wherever you came from, I'm not sure. And I do thank you for helping us work through this and look forward to bringing it to a closure. There's a lot of homes in the county we can help with this item. All right, Patsy, while you're there, we'll go back to item number 13 and abandoned manufactured home, which is another one we ready to bring to a closure.
This item is regarding the budget for the abandoned manufactured home program. Nash County was awarded $27,000 from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. The agreement was effective March 1st, 2021, and terminates 2 years after that. Grant funds are being used for expenses incurred in the demolition, disposal, and recycling of abandoned and dilapidated manufactured homes. The grant covers up to $1,500 for single-wide manufactured homes and up to $2,500 for double-wide manufactured homes. The removal of all the homes has been bid, and for homes where the contractor's bid exceeded the grant coverage, owners have paid the overages. Nash County has a total of 17 active applications, and with $2,380 in local funds, we can assist all of the applicants. Attached is the grant project budget ordinance amendment, which the finance director prepared with our input. And let me review it briefly, since we left out one client contribution with the first draft, and I just want to make sure we're looking at the right thing. The grant is $27,000. The client contribution is $6,140. The transfer from the general fund would be $2,380, and the total revenue would be $35,520. And of course, that figure would also be the expenditures for the project. So what we recommend is that you approve the grant project budget ordinance amendment for this project. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to address them.
Questions of Ms. McGee on this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Arrington. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a light sign. Motion carries as well. We'll move now to item number 14, Patsy, which is yours also, State Capital Infrastructure Fund, direct grant for Nash County.
Yes. This item is regarding the budget for the North Carolina State Capital and Infrastructure Fund, also called SCIF.
Let me say one thing, because probably most of the commissioners are not familiar with this one. It is a grant that showed up very quickly, and we had a short timeline to find what we could spend it on, and we met a couple of times, or staff met a couple of times, and found several things we might could do, and this is where we have decided to try to do it with. But the reason you hadn't heard about it, it just came up. State just gave us $1 million, more or less. And of course, we had some criteria about how to spend it, but I think you'll be excited how the staff chose to spend it. Now, I apologize for interrupting you, but they are getting this for the first time.
Thank you for that background. Nash County was awarded the $1 million from the North Carolina Office of State Budget and Management, and this agreement was effective July 1st and terminates June 30th, but as the chairman indicated, we've had very little time to actually work on the scope of work. The grant funds are to be used for expenses incurred for county capital, and Nash County plans to use the funds to construct a shell building for economic development on its Highway 97 economic development site. Attached is the grant project ordinance, which the finance director prepared with our input, and we ask that you approve the grant project ordinance. We realize this is not the full cost of this. We're just budgeting this money, and when we bid the project and we know the full cost of the shell building, we have an estimate on it, but when we know the full cost, we'll be back to the board to budget the remaining funds.
Do you want to tell a little bit about the other things we looked at about the potential Nashville project, why we couldn't do that, and how we ended up at 97?
We talked about several other projects. I didn't bring my file, but one of them was the shell building in Nashville, but because we didn't own the property, we could not use these funds for that. We had to use it for a project on a county-owned property.
And of course, we're all very anxious to get something going on at 97, so we just felt like this was an opportunity to Boone and his people will decide where to put it, but it would just give us a shell building in that location. I think if we can get one thing out there where it doesn't look like you're in the middle of nowhere when you get there, it would help facilitate, just like we're going to be doing at Middlesex and the traffic that we picked up down there. So I was very excited that we were able to do that. Now, we will have to put some other funds with it when we start that project, because shell buildings, like every other building, have gone up quite a bit since then. But any questions on it? Sure, Sue.
So is the thinking to begin some industrial development in the 97 site such that the rest of the site will be open and available for other industries that we're not blocking ourselves in, hopefully? And
Absolutely.
yeah, okay.
I envision it being to the left-hand side, road front, but that may not be the case. I really hadn't looked at it. Mr. Boone might could add more, but we all just, it's a fresh to all of us, but we'll find the right spot to do it so we don't impede on developing the whole thing like we've seen it several times before.
Have we got in mind how big a shell building we're gonna build down there?
We're thinking similar to what we've been doing, but that's not in stone either.
I understand we've got some money we need to use, and I think that's good, but I'd like to see a little bit more information.
Oh, yeah.
Being this is the first time we've
Understood. Yep.
heard about this.
Mhm. Other questions, comments?
Just explain, this grant can only be used for what?
It can be used for capital expenses that relate to infrastructure.
Existing projects?
Projects that are ready to go, pretty much. It has to be spent by the end of, was it June 2023? Yes, June 30th, 2023.
What other projects y'all looked at?
Well, we looked at potentially using it for some, for lack of a better word, maintenance type issues, maybe at the courthouse or a potentially new roof on this building. And I felt pretty strongly that it would be better for us to use county funds to do maintenance on buildings and to use this one-time grant to do something that would help facilitate some kind of economic development if possible. So that's where we kind of ended up at, was trying to do a shell building, and we really wanted to do it in the town of Nashville in our attempt to work towards the agreement of trying to get Nashville on board with us on economic development. But at the last minute, we were able to find out that it had to be on a piece of property that we owned and not on a piece of property somebody else owned. Other questions?
Could I just make a comment?
Sure.
When we receive our agenda, and I think we received it on Wednesday, I'm sure I'm like everybody else on this board. I'm pretty quick to start looking at that agenda. And I saw this item on there, and I did contact and get some information on it. So I did have some knowledge of this before today.
Right.
And I appreciate that being shared with me, but that opportunity exists for anybody that wishes to ask questions about the agenda. That's why it's put out in advance, I would assume. So.
We put out in advance because we asked for it to be put out in advance.
Well,
probably.
I just wanted to be very clear that this didn't just come out of the blue. This was made available to us, and I had reviewed it and seen it. Nobody spoke to me before the agenda came out, but I did see it and review it, and I appreciate that. But with that said, and if there are no other questions, I'd move for adoption of this project budget ordinance.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, second by Gwen. Now we can have further conversation if anybody wishes to. Any other conversation? Now, if you feel we're not doing the right thing with it, please speak up. But I feel real good about it, quite frankly.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I feel good about this and the Shell building at that location. And even though this was on the agenda, I guess I would like, would have liked the opportunity to see or be included maybe on the discussion before a decision was made.
I think it was actually made, if I remember right, Patsy, probably the day before the agenda went out, or maybe 2 days. It just was no time in there
Okay.
much.
Understood.
It generally don't happen like this. It was a rarity that we got the money and had a short window to figure out some project to put it on.
Understood. That's why we have a chairman.
And when you get the agenda, if you got any questions on it, staff is here to answer it. Y'all know you can call me anytime. I'll be glad to explain it to you. Sometimes I get things and have to move pretty quick to make it work. And it's not any intention trying to hide anything at all. I just try to make the schedules that the staff gives us to meet, particularly when we need to lose $1 million.
Understood.
Okay. Other comments, questions? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. That's item number 14. We'll move to item number 15.
This item is in regards to the local agreements necessary to begin implementing the Wi-Fi and hand washing stations in several of our municipalities. Nash County was awarded a $900,000 Community Development Block Grant, coronavirus grant by the state of North Carolina, and of the $900,000, $405,000 was allocated for public facilities, including $322,000 for Wi-Fi zones and $83,000 for hand washing stations. The North Carolina Department of Commerce Rural Economic Development Division requires that we have interlocal agreements with its municipal partners, with our municipal partners, for the Wi-Fi zones and hand washing stations. As approved in our grant application for CDBG CV funds that was submitted by Nash County and the Wooten Company, we plan to initially install free Wi-Fi at the Whitakers Town Hall, Castelia Community Park, and Nashville J.W. Glover Park, including service until June of 2023. Also, as approved in the grant application, we plan to initially install a hand washing station at each of the following locations: Community Park in Castelia, Spring Hope Town Hall and Spring Hope Library, and Whitaker's Town Hall. We have attached the 4 interlocal agreements which the towns have already approved. We have also attached the subsipient agreement, which details the scope of work to be performed by Cloudwise on behalf of Nash County in accordance with HUD regulations and the state regulations. And we also, we already have a subrecipient agreement with Wooten for the design of the hand washing stations. So we do expect to come back in coming months with additional locations that are in qualifying low to moderate income census blocks and municipalities. And we had hoped to bring that all to you as one nice tidy packet, but when we initially submitted the coronavirus grant, since that time, some of these municipalities and locations no longer or do not want the Wi-Fi or the hand washing stations. So we're trying to work through those issues and find additional locations, which will require environmental review. So we didn't want to delay these while we were waiting on the other ones. So attached to your agenda are 4 interlocal agreements. As I said, each already executed by the municipalities, and a subrecipient agreement with Cloudwise. And we already have a grant project budget ordinance in place. So the recommendation is to approve each of these interlocal agreements and the subrecipient agreement with Cloudwise.
Questions of Patsy on this item?
Has this money got to be spent for Wi-Fi and hand washing stations? I mean, you know, I can understand why some of these municipalities,
Well, we're
it's kind of like
spending,
it's over with. You know, why do we need a hand washing station? We ain't had them all these years. You know, has it got to be spent, is my question.
well, there's quite the process for changing it. What we submitted was hand washing stations, Wi-Fi, and subsistence payments, which is helping individuals with assistance on, we're working with NEED or NEWCA on the subsistence payments, helping people with their rent or their mortgage or their light bill or water and sewer bill, that kind of thing. So that is another component of the grant. There are processes for changing, but as you may recall at the time, a year ago, coronavirus, hand washing stations were kind of a thing, and we're leaning towards more putting them in parks and that kind of situation, but it's whatever the towns and the county want. They can't go everywhere. They can only go in these low to moderate income census tracts and municipalities. So we can't just put them anywhere, but I understand what you're saying. There is a process for changing it. The people at the state, both the director and our program manager, have changed, and it's not as easy as it used to be, really, to get things changed, but there is a process.
Other questions of Patsy? Patsy, what was the reason a town, do you recall a reason a town wouldn't have wanted Wi-Fi?
Maybe they didn't want the public at a particular location after hours, or maybe there wasn't enough parking to really accommodate what might be the need.
Okay. All right. I entertain a motion for approval of this item.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Ayrton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilkins. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Item 15 carries. We'll move to item 17.
Okay? This item is in relation to Phase 2 of Nash County Miracle Park at Coopers. The Nash County Park Committee has been meeting to plan for Phase 2 of the Nash County Miracle Park at Coopers, which is the county's only county-owned park. Phase 1 of the regional park, which is located at 3471 Joyner Road, Elm City, North Carolina, was completed last year, 2021, and is already heavily used for a variety of recreation activities like basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, the playground, walking trails, picnic shelters. Plus, Parks and Rec has a variety of programs down there, such as sports camps and the Mother-Son Luau. To help fund Phase 2 of this regional park, we're planning to submit a grant application to the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund for park development. Grant applications are due in early May. Before we submit the grant application, decisions must be made concerning what elements will be included in the park. We're required to submit a site-specific development plan and cost estimates with the grant application. We already have a survey to document public interest in several kinds of park elements. Also, we recently attended several civic club meetings in the area to discuss community park needs. A public meeting to obtain additional input is scheduled for March 10th, this Thursday, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Coopers Elementary School gym. To prepare the required design and cost estimates, we widely distributed a request for qualifications for firms, and we received just one response and then negotiated with Stocks Engineering, resulting in the attached agreement for up to $3,700. This has been reviewed by the county attorney. The cost can be covered initially with an existing fund, and later on, if we're awarded the PARTF grant, then we would move them over and they would be reimbursable by up to 50% from PARTF. But the finance director has indicated that there's no additional budget needed at this point. In April, we will present to commissioners items that require specific action for the PARTF grant application, including approval of the final design for Phase 2 of the park. So attached is the agreement for engineering design services with Stocks Engineering for Nash County Miracle Park at Coopers Phase 2, and our recommendation is to approve the agreement.
Questions of Mr. McGee by commissioners? Seeing none, I entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Sorry, I can't pick up y'all's voices. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to item number 18, North Carolina Department of Public Safety Grant for Nash County Sheriff's Office. Call on Donna Wood to make the presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, the first item that I have, as you indicated, is a grant, a public safety grant for our sheriff's office. And just to give you a little background on that one, the $7,500,000 was appropriated in the North Carolina state budget to the Department of Public Safety in the 2021-22 budget to provide grant funds to county sheriff's offices with populations of 210,000 or fewer, based on a 2019 certified county population. And they were to be allocated in equal amounts. And so with that population count, there were 89 sheriff's offices that these grant funds were available to. And the funds are to be used for expenses incurred by the sheriff's office for enforcing the laws of the state and carrying out other duties set by the law. So with that said, just a description of what I have in place, the Nash County Sheriff's Office has been awarded $84,269.66 from the Department of Public Safety. The agreement is effective November 18th, 2021, and terminates June 30th, 2023. The grant funds are for expense, as I indicated, the grant funds are for expenses incurred in enforcing the law as directed by the North Carolina General Assembly, Session Law 2021-180, House Bill 105. The Sheriff's Office plans to use the funds to assist with the purchase of an armored vehicle, Bearcat, which is a Bearcat, to be used for tactical or emergency response.
Okay. Don, if I remember right, the cost of that item was considerably more than that.
About three.
It is. My understanding is that this may be about a quarter of the cost of what's available. The $84,000 is probably about a quarter of the cost of this vehicle. And Major Eddie Moore is here if there are additional questions on the plans of the Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
But just to know, moving forward, nothing can really happen with this until a full amount of funds are available. A contract can't be signed to move forward. But I did talk to Major Eddie Moore, and he said he'd be available for questions.
Ed, if you don't mind, I do want to make sure we're not boxing ourselves in with this, the way financing works for government.
Yes, sir.
Are the funds to make up the difference available at this time?
They're not yet. So we've got until June of next year, like you said, to spend this money. So our plans are to allocate the rest of that money between now and then, either through, we're working on a couple other grant options or through asset forfeiture.
Does spent mean spent or obligated, Donna?
At this point, I would think if it would have to be obligated through a contract to be in place, but that would be a definition we'd have to work with the state on and Department of Public Safety.
My thinking is that's probably a pretty, do you know the lead time on getting one of those built?
It's about a year.
About a year, okay. So we certainly hope it's obligated and not spent then.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're aware that we've got to have the full amount before we even place that order and everything.
Right, but what my real question is that date of June 30th, 2023, is that the date you got to spend the funds or the date you got to obligate the funds? That's a question I think you need to look into.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I understand.
Just to be sure, because sometimes it's one way, sometimes it's the other. So, once you obligate this, let's just say, for instance, it happened to be that you had to spend it by that date, which might be impossible, or you weren't able to obtain other funds, can you de-obligate it and do something else with it?
Yes, sir, I think so. The way it's written, I mean, it's actually pretty vague about what we can use it for. It basically just says for law enforcement purposes. So
Yeah, it was real vague, what she read.
Yes, sir.
Extremely vague.
So, and I'm not sure if I'm not familiar if we've got a backup plan in place in case all that doesn't pan out.
Right.
That's something I'll touch base with the sheriff on, to see
Okay.
if we've got a backup plan
All
in
right.
case it doesn't, so.
So, I just don't want us to lose the money, and I
Yes,
know
sir,
y'all
we don't
don't either. Other questions from commissioners?
I'm sure if that time comes and it looks like we're not able to do that, then I'm sure we'll back up and punt and try something else.
Okay.
Because obviously, we don't want to lose the money.
Right. Donna, taking this action today, we could undo it and do something else with the money later?
We could, this was just a request by the Sheriff's Office. So in their grant, it doesn't say that they have to specify in the grant how they're using it.
Gotcha.
They've been awarded the funds, but this was the direction that the Sheriff's Office wanted to
Sure,
move.
okay, that's fine. No other questions?
So we would just be approving the grant application?
Well, apparently, we've already got the money,
Okay.
so we have done that previously. We are approving it. Help me out with the answer, Donna, what are we doing?
We are approving the grant. So we are
We are accepting the grant.
accepting the grant,
Okay.
and we're putting in place a budget ordinance to take those funds in with the idea currently that a portion, or that money would be used for a portion of this vehicle.
Okay, all right. Other questions? Mr. Allen?
So I guess the record would reflect today that if we approve this grant, that the remaining funds needed for this vehicle would be from other grants or asset forfeiture money, And if that were not the case, then this grant could be redirected or would be redirected to other needs. Is that fair?
That is correct.
Then I would like the record to reflect that.
And also, what would happen is, once the other funds are available, if they're available, I would come back to the board to have those budgeted as well to move forward with.
Right, understood. Okay. Other comments, concerns, questions? Entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion, we adopt the grant project budget ordinance.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilkins. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion stands approved. Thank you, Major Moore. Moving on to 19, which is urgent repair program. You doing that, Ms. Wood? or-
I am.
Okay.
So this is a closeout project ordinance for the Housing Urgent Repair Program. The 2020 Urgent Repair Program was funded with $100,000 in grant funding from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. The program assisted 10 low-income homeowners with crucial repairs that enabled the residents to remain in the home with greater safety and improved quality of life. So this item I have before you is to approve the project closeout ordinance.
Okay. Any questions? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Item number 20 is budget amendments. Ms. Wood?
Okay. The first budget amendment I have presented to the board for consideration is with the Department of Social Services. This amendment's presented to increase family reunification, it's presented to increase family reunification of federal funds to provide purchase services to facilitate, I'm going to start over again. To
About like
facilitate
the senior center in Southern Nash, isn't it?
safe reunification for children in foster care, increase crisis intervention, federal funds to assist qualified citizens with heating and cooling expenses, and increase APS essential services, federal funds to provide essential services for adults for whom the need for protective services have been substantiated. It's a request of $10,256, and no additional county funds are required. The next item is with Planning and Inspections Department. This budget amendment is presented to budget additional funds for third-party cell tower project reviews by Cityscape Consultants related to the expansion of 5G and broadband internet service. Review fees are paid by the project applicant, so no additional county funds are required. It's a request to increase $10,000. The next item is with Senior Services. This amendment's presented to increase funding based on donations for the Project Lifesaver Program. No additional county funds are required. It's $5,236. The next item is also with Senior Services. It's an amendment to increase funding from HCCBG for senior center operations. It's $65,301. No county funds are required. And the final one is with a general fund transfer. This budget amendment is presented to budget general fund balance to cover the local fund cost to complete the abandoned manufactured home project for all 17 active applicants. It's $2,380.
Any questions on those 6 budget amendments in 4 departments? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Moved by Commissioner Leggett. A second. Second by Commissioner Combs. Y'all give me a hard time this morning. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is item number 21, board appointments, which I understand we do not have any. Donna, I think we might have one error on the chart that you put in there on TDA. I don't think Dan Daly has another term, and it shows there he does have another term. Do I remember that right? Okay, so take a look at that, because I think we're going to need it on there next time. And what that is on TDA, he is a provider. He is not a collector, but he is in the tourism business, being he worked for L&L convenience stores all those years. So if you'll be thinking about someone to bring forward to fill that slot. All right, item number 22 is a monthly tax report. Doris Sumner. Good.
Good morning.
Morning, right on.
At this time, I'd like to present the monthly tax report. As you all know, this report is designed to keep you all abreast of the activities in the tax collector's office. The report is for your information only and does not require approval. However, it is recommended that you accept the report so that it be noted in the minutes. And if there are any questions, I would be glad to answer.
Any questions of Ms. Sumner on the tax report? Seeing none, it's noted and accepted.
All right, thank you. The next item I have are 23's tax refunds.
Yes.
And we do have several refunds that need approval so that we may disperse those funds.
Any questions on the tax refunds? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins. There a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Arrington. Questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Tax refund stand approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 24.
And the last item I have for the board's consideration is to establish the date for the Board of Equalization and Review. As described in North Carolina General Statute 105-322, Section E, the Board of Equalization and Review shall hold its first meeting no earlier than the first Monday in April and no later than the first Monday in May. It is recommended that the board schedule the first meeting of the Board of Equalization and Review on Monday, May the 2nd, 2022 at 11 a.m., and adjourn for the purpose of accepting the appeals at its second meeting on June the 6th, 2022.
Any questions? Call for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign?
Will you give us those dates again?
Yes, sir. Monday, May the 2nd at 11 a.m. and June 6th at 11 a.m.
Motion stands approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're on item number 25 now, which is commissioner comments. I call on any commissioner that wishes to speak.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to, we spoke earlier about giving a brief synopsis of the National Association of Counties
Yes, ma'am.
Legislative Conference that was in Washington, D.C. from February the 12th through the 16th. And just briefly, I wanted to let you all know what they went over and some of the high points. And Commissioner Belfield was also at that meeting. Their number one goal was broadband, getting that out into the counties. Number two was school capital funding. And 3 was ballot language, and I'll elaborate on that. They wanted to support legislation to allow counties to include specific language on the ballot referendum designating how the proposed quarter-cent local sales tax levy would be spent. They also spoke about mental health funding, increasing state funding and legislation, and protecting county revenues. They opposed the efforts to divert to the state fees or taxes currently allocated to the counties. And the last thing I just wanted to say, the meeting I sat into, one of them on justice and public policy, they did approve a resolution to support qualified immunity. And they would be sending that to the national conference, which is in July, I believe, and then eventually to legislatures and our lawmakers to support. That's my report.
What does that mean, if you can tell me?
Qualified immunity?
Yes, ma'am.
let me tell it in my own words. So if a law enforcement officer or a government official should be in their duties to discharge their duties, they could not be held liable personally for that. As you know, over the years, things have happened, and things have come back to the county, the state, or that law enforcement entity. Qualified immunity would protect that government official or that law enforcement officer from being sued personally, and their assets taken for that. And so National Association of Counties is supporting qualified immunity to protect government officials and law enforcement.
Okay, thank you. The discussion on the quarter-cent sales tax, I guess that was in a North Carolina association meeting at the national meeting?
It was, yes, it was, and it's, I have information on all of that. If anyone would like to see it, I do. I brought a lot of information back.
Right.
So,
We hadn't, that is still available to us, and we hadn't addressed it in a number of years. We attempted it one time, Janice, what year, but quite a while ago, and it failed pretty miserable, so we've kind of left it on the shelf. But a lot of counties in North Carolina now have a 7% sales tax, where we are still at 6.75. And to move, get that other quarter-cent, you have to have a referendum of the voters, and you would have had, I think you have to tell what it's going to be used for, is my understanding. And apparently this talk here is about making it more specific on the ballot, I guess, for what it would be used for, is what it sounds like. So if at any point, any commissioner has an idea of want to try that again and has a specific use for it, that is available to Nash County right on.
Wonder how much that would generate, a quarter-cent?
Ms. Wood, the question was, what would that generate? I have known in the past, but I don't know today. Okay, all right. What is our total assessed amount? For the sales tax? What do we get for the total sales tax?
I'm trying to think, I think we budgeted just under 16 million this past year.
I'm going to wait for her to get back to us. All right, any other commissioner have anything to report?
Just mentioned the March, we'll do our budget retreat. April, we have no mid-month. May, we have a mid-month, so if you have any suggestions, get them to myself or county manager. Internal and external presentations.
Didn't we have something in mind on one of them and move something in front of it? Do I remember?
I'd have to look back at my notes.
Okay, I think we did.
We bumped Mr. Gillespie back, doing an update on Miracle Park, but I think we're keeping the board up to date on
Yeah,
that with
we are.
moving forward with Phase 2.
Sure.
But I'll look back at our notes and see.
I think you're right.
Yep.
We should have plenty on that by
Yeah.
May.
Has it been discussed where we're gonna have the retreat, or we gonna have it here, or where?
I can report to you on that in just a moment.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You get that, sir?
I got that. Just like-
Any
just
other
like being
commissioner?
at home.
Got it. Any other commissioner have a comment this time? The only thing I will say, two things, new housing report, we had 34 new homes, permits during the month of February. That's down just a little bit, but still pretty doggone active. They were scattered throughout the county pretty well, and they were pulled by 18 different builders. So pretty balanced thing there. And only other thing, and Stacey, you may know the answer, I thought about when I talked to Mr. Belfield last night, and he couldn't be here. With the COVID changes, do we still have the ability for a commissioner to tune in on a meeting by Zoom and to be counted present? If not, what would we have to do to be able to do that? Should a commissioner have to be remotely tuned in? Can we do that, and what do we have to do?
We will have to publish notice, letting the public know that we're going to have a remote meeting if we have one commissioner that's participating.
Okay, so if one commissioner needs to tune in, which I know Sue has to travel quite a bit, and I do sometimes, we need to let you know soon enough to adequately publish the meeting. Okay.
Yes,
All right, that's all we need to do?
yes.
Okay, all right, that's just something that crossed my mind.
So is that like a week in advance of the meeting, or what's the timing on that?
I guess the 48 hours.
So just a couple of days?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right, thank you. No one else has a comment? Item number 26 is manager report, and Mr. Combs can get his answer on that.
Thank you. I wanted to report that an offer has been made and accepted for the Assistant County Manager position. Cornelius J. Jordan, who goes by CJ, will be joining us on March the 21st. And tomorrow morning, he will be able to join our management team, Teams call to meet our management team. So I'm looking forward to introducing him in the morning to our management team. Our budget team will hold meetings with department heads this week to discuss the individual department budgets. We will be meeting with all departments this coming week. The budget retreat, which is scheduled for March the 23rd and 24th, that's a Wednesday and Thursday, will be held at the Drake Community Center, located at 5251 Drake Road in Brattleboro. If you'll recall, we were trying to schedule it at that location back in 2020 when COVID hit, and we've been in-house since. So we'll look forward to getting back out into the community and visit the Drake Center. We'll be ready for your arrival at 8:30 on those two mornings, and we will plan to start our agenda at 9 a.m. on those mornings. And lunch will be provided on those days. Are there any other questions about the budget retreat before I move on?
That was in what month?
This month.
This March.
Yes, sir, this month.
Back up some more.
March 23rd and 24th.
I see it now. 8:30 then.
8:30 will be ready for you, and 9 o'clock we'll start our agenda. Our training committee has met, and we're planning to relaunch the 2020 Building Leaders Together program. That's our leadership training program. We're going to relaunch that on March 15th. The training is a partnership between the county and Nash Community College, and our classes once a month will be held at the college campus. Final projects and graduation are currently scheduled for November the 15th, 2022. The training committee also decided to take a look back at the agenda that we had planned for our management team retreat that we had to cancel in January. And we're going to try to offer some of those sessions as individual sessions for our management team here in the commissioner's room at different scheduled times. So we're going to just offer some training to our management team in that fashion for this year. From February 8th through March the 2nd, Nash County hosted FEMA ambulance cruise. In that time, the cruise ran as the primary ambulance for EMS 800, which is 24 hours a day, and ran the primary ambulance for EMS 700 from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. every day. They provided much-needed relief to our staff by responding to over 400 calls. Their presence allowed our staff to take a break from the busiest areas and keep the more rural ambulances in service. As of March 2nd, the North Carolina's contract with FEMA ended, resulting in those strike teams' departure. So they are no longer here in Nash County. If you'll recall, on January 23rd, 2021, Nash County received National Guardsmen to help with our Nash County Health Department for public health services. They assisted with COVID testing and vaccination clinics. They set up for clinics, cleaned up after clinics, administered tests and vaccines, did patient registration, triage, provided results and counseling, and did data entry into the state system. And as of today, those National Guardsmen are leaving Nash County. They were here for over a year. We had approximately 10 in all. Some came and left, and some are with us leaving today that came on January the 23rd. So we're extremely grateful for the National Guard's help. I know our staff will stay in contact with many of them moving forward. Just wanted to let you know that I have visited with our towns to meet with their boards and administration. Tonight, I meet with, tonight I meet with Spring Hope, and then I meet with Dorches on March the 22nd, and then that will conclude my visits with all of our towns. I've also met with officials from Nash UNC Healthcare, the Community College, Trillium Health Resources, and our airport. I just did want to touch back on the North Carolina State Capital and Infrastructure Fund grant, the SCIF grant that we spoke of. It would be my intention moving forward to provide you all with information on that. I do apologize. That one did come up very quickly. I do want to thank Patsy McGee for her quick turnaround on that with all of the other grants that she's managing and administering. To have another one thrown at her that had to be turned around so quickly is actually just amazing that she gets that work done for us. But it would be my goal moving forward to make sure that you all have some information about those items before they come to you. And then also, Commissioner Cone, I did hear your concern about hand washing stations, so I will get with Patsy to see if there is a way for Nash County to divert those funds. When that grant was written months and months and months ago, again, hand washing stations were a more popular attraction, and we may be able to spend those funds in a different way, and we will look into that and report back to you. And I think that's all I have.
All right, any questions of that report?
I have one. Madam Manager, when you get with Ms. McGee and you find out about the hand washing stations, no action will be taken until this board votes on it. Is that
correct?
I feel very strongly, even though COVID has subsided some, in our public parks and whatnot, we have children playing, and it's just a matter of health. So
sure.
I would definitely like it to come before the board before any action is taken.
Sure, we will definitely keep you informed.
Thank you.
And the towns and cities also have.
I'm sorry?
The towns and cities that's affected would also have a say on
Sure.
that.
Yeah, because they've already taken action on them, come to think up.
Right.
Good point, Mr. Harris.
Right.
All right, any other questions of the manager? Good report, thank you. Next item is to call for a closed session. Direction, Madam Clerk, is your lunch here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Remind me, I know we discussed it, are we going to have our closed session in the back?
If that's the desire of the board, the conference room is available for lunch and for closed session.
So does anybody object to having a closed session in the conference room again today? No objection. That's what we'll do then. All right, this time I'd call for a motion to go into closed session for economic development and matters of attorney-client privilege.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Mr. Durham, is there any action to your knowledge we will be taking after closed session? Don't think so, okay. All right, we'll take just a short recess while we're moving to the back, and then call ourselves back to order in closed session. Thank you. I'll call the regular session back to order at this time. There is no other business for the Nash County Board of Commissioners for the March the 7th meeting, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, I think. Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. We stand adjourned.